righty, good morning, guys. Sounds like we are up and working. Good deal. So this morning I'm going to be going over 2 Corinthians chapter 5 with you guys. Ooh, we got Miles in the back. Hey, Miles. Good deal. So some of you guys might be wondering, why 2 Corinthians instead of 1st, and also why starting in chapter 5? Two things. It looked interesting, so we're going with that. And second off, this is this quarter we are doing the popcorn teaching. So if you guys would like to teach, there is a sign-up sheet in the back you guys can fill out. I think we are still missing some holes back there, so feel welcome to do that. But anyway, yeah, if you guys want to turn to 2 Corinthians chapter 5, that is what we'll be going through this morning. And I'll be reading through several of the verses here, and then we'll be discussing, going along with that. So input is welcome. So let's start in 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and go through verses 1 through 5. All right, it says here, "For we know that if the earthly tent we live in is destroyed, we have a building from God, an eternal house in heaven, not built by human hands. Meanwhile we groan, longing to be clothed instead with our heavenly dwelling, because when we are clothed, we will not be found naked. For while we are in this tent, we groan and are burdened, because we do not wish to be unclothed, but to be clothed instead with our heavenly dwelling, so that what is mortal may be swallowed up by life. Now the one who has fashioned us for this very purpose is God, who has given us the Spirit as a deposit, guaranteeing what is to come." So my first thought going through this, right, is kind of hard at times to imagine really desiring to be separated from the physical body I have right now. I mean, I have aches and I feel aches and pains maybe 5-10% of the time. So I'm pretty much not in pain. I can do what I want to for the most part. Doesn't bother me. So it can be a little hard there, but I was kind of wanting to ask you guys, how are some ways that we can start to develop longing? Here it is. How do we develop a longing for being clothed with our heavenly dwelling, right? And maybe an answer I might get from a lot of people is, well, when you get old, you'll understand. But any other thoughts there? What might make us start to see things a little differently? What might make us long for being clothed with a heavenly dwelling? Okay. So just seeing how God is working through your life might increase that longing, right? Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. I like you mentioned that with all sincerity, right? That's really good. And a point that you mentioned was something I was kind of starting to think a little bit there, which is really good, that no sin tomorrow, right? If Jesus comes today. So this aspect of if we know who we are, right, and we're confident in that, which we should be, then Christ coming tomorrow is a win, right? So, or today even. But that's a good thing there, is actually dwelling on prayer, right? Starting to pray for those things. It's kind of like if you say something over and over again, you start to believe it, right? If you're prayerful about that, it becomes a lot easier to be earnest about that. So, good. Any other thoughts on that? Yes. Yeah, we live in a culture where we get to see a lot of that, don't we? Yeah. Yep. That's really good. My other question for you guys, which I think this is kind of goes along with this a little bit, but is longing for that a healthy thing? Or is it a little bit of both? Can it be unhealthy for us too? Yes. Right. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, it could be kind of a real battle for us day to day. Yeah. Yeah, and it only ends when it ends, right? Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, um, as in end of time. So I guess where was where were you running with that? Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. 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 Yeah. It's not like you going means there's still something going on. It's done. Yeah. 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 That's actually is a good thought of this longing, right? A couple different aspects. Either you pass on or the end of the world, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Mm-hmm. 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 Right. Right. That's it. That see, I've never thought about that as an aspect as far as like um, me dying versus end of time, right? That's interesting. Yeah. Huh. See, learn something new, guys. Yes, sir. Okay. Right. Yep. Hmm. Yes, I like that. Yep, yep, that's perfect. Yes, Kel. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it certainly adds an element of hope to life, right? Like, there is something better in the future than what I'm just experiencing right now. Yeah, I like that. I like that point. Okay, so, oh, yes. Mm-hmm. 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 Right, right. That's good. Yes, Justice. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's really good, right? And on those points, something that kind of just hit me was this aspect of, I mean, Jesus tells us it's better for you that I leave, right? Because now that spirit is a deposit. Um, that was my next question. How is the spirit a deposit, right? I think we kind of hit on that, right? Where it's just like he's given us something that's like, here you go. You have part of me now, and when we move on, we get to experience the fullness of that, right? That's really good. That's really good. Um, so this also was kind of a point that we hit back here. Do these verses indicate that we should neglect the physical, right? I think that kind of hits a little bit on some of the dangers that we were mentioning over here. Um, I guess what are some ways that neglecting what's going on here would be harmful? Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Mhm. Right. Mhm. Right. 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 That's a good point. And so I think you hit it on the head, right? They completely neglected that there was work to be done here, right? Um, so yeah, one danger I could see is we forget to utilize our physical time here, right? And as we get into the next set of scriptures, I think we'll see that point exactly. That's really good. Anyone want to hit on verse 6 through 10 for me? Yes, sir. Yes. Hmm. Hmm. So, perfect. Thank you. Um, First thing I want to hit on is the part that I first read through this was that made me think a little bit like, what? Was it's in verse 6. It says, therefore we are always confident and know that as long as we are at home in the body, we are away from the Lord. And my first thought was saying, why is he calling the body home? And also, why is he saying that we are away from the Lord, right? What does he mean by that? Right. Hmm. Hmm. Okay, that's perfect. Addressing home in the body, right? This is a place that we have found to be home as far as what we're capable of understanding. Right. Right. Yes. Perfect. Okay. Okay. See, that's interesting. A whole different version completely phrases it completely differently, right? So, and this aspect of not being at home with the Lord or being away from the Lord, right? Does that mean that he doesn't dwell in us? No, he dwells in us. Just means that we're not fully with him at this point, right? So, yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. So that's a really good point where longing is really healthy for us in the sense that it is separating us from attachment to being at home in the body, right? Because while God made our bodies, and that's good, that's not really where we belong eternally, right? Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right, right. Thank you for mentioning that. That's perfect. Um, because yeah, he addresses this right away in verse 9 there, right? We make it our goal to please him, regardless of where we're at. Right, right. And that I think is almost in part to address this aspect of not getting focused too much on what we're discussing here, right? As the end goal. Very good. Yes. Mm-hmm. Right. 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 And that's a huge perspective shift from the rest of the world, isn't it? Where people are so attached to what is going on here because they think this is it, right? And we have a completely different perspective. Yep. Yep. So, unless we've got any other, yes, Mr. Johnson. Mm-hmm. Right. 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 That's really good. It gives us that external. We were kind of chatting about some of those things, especially on the car ride up to camp. But just a little bit of that. The external can help us recognize that we're a lot more powerful than what we really are, what we can think we are. Yep. So let's see here. One thing that kind of struck me a little bit as far as a verse that came to mind in reading all this was Matthew 25. I'm going to read from verses 1 through 13. It says, "At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps, but did not take any oil with them. The wise ones, however, took oil jars along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight, the cry rang out, 'Here is the bridegroom, come out to meet him.' Then all the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish ones said to the wise, 'Give us some of your oil. Our lamps are going out.' 'No,' they replied, 'there may not be enough for both us and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves.' But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later the others also came. 'Lord, Lord,' they said, 'open the door for us.' But he replied, 'Truly I tell you, I don't know you. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour.'" So, again, tying in, right? This is a parable that Jesus told, but I think it points to a fact that the physical, what's going on now, has a lot of importance, right? These virgins were to spend this time here to prepare, and the ones that did were rewarded, and the ones that didn't were not, right? And so another thing that I was thinking about was a discussion I was having with my dad. It says, and he was just kind of throwing this question out there, a little bit of, why do we spend time in the body after we're saved, right? If the end goal is just being saved so we can be with Jesus, why don't we die after we're baptized, right? Like, why do we have to go on living? So I have some thoughts on that. Any thoughts you guys might have on some of that? I think it kind of ties into this discussion a little bit. Yes? Mhm. Mhm. Right. 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 Yeah, so that was my first thought too. And it was like, well, Jesus instructs us to go out and do his work, right? Later on in this chapter, we get into that too a little bit. Any other reasons maybe we stick around? Mm-hmm. 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 Yep. That'd be a pretty flawed design, right? Yeah. Hopeless. Just a hopeless place. Yeah. Yes. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. That's a really good way of putting that. I appreciate that. Yes, ma'am. Yep. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that becomes our responsibility. Yep. Yep. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Really good. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. 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 Right. Yep. Yep. You hit right on the head. The other point that I wanted to make out of that was, one, we're here to do work, right? Um, and of course, we see all the like, what hope would people have if we weren't here, right? But the other point is perfect, right? This is a time relationship has started here on earth, right? Um, something I have a friend right now who is going through processing the fact that they are in the process of dying, right? And since their baptism, it's just become so clear to me how valuable life is in the aspect that they have spent this time now actually starting to understand who God is. They can build relationships, so they're actually prepared to go, and the Father can look at them and say, I know you. Get up here. I love that. I know you, get up here, right? The end of this parable is just heartbreaking, really. But he replied, truly I tell you, I don't know you, right? That tells us that relationship has to exist here before we go up there, because then he knows us, right? So lamenting being here in the physical is not, I think lamenting it may be a little bit unhealthy in the sense of it's healthy to long, but it's also an aspect of, we have to understand that this time that we do have here is still immensely valuable, both for helping other people build a relationship, and we need to build a relationship, right? That's what life is about. So thank you guys for for going there with everything. That's really good. Any other thoughts on that before we move on here? Yes, Mr. Johnson. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, that's a completely different perspective, and that's a perspective that is um, at least somewhat removed from self, right? That's, yeah. Yep. Yes, sir. Right, right, right. Yeah, completely different perspective from a perspective of weakness where I don't want to pursue any pain, right? Yep, yep. Good deal. Alrighty, so our next set of verses here would be 12 through 15. Could I get somebody to grab those? Or actually, no, wait a minute. I'm skipping one. Verse 11. If I could have somebody just read verse 11 for me, that'd be great. I really like that. I really like the way that verse phrases that. What's meant by plain to our conscience here? Right, so we get this aspect of we try to persuade others since we know what it is to fear the Lord, right? This goes into an aspect of working, right? We try to persuade others. That is a natural result of who we become. And then after that it says, what we are is plain to God, right? He sees everything, and I hope it is also plain to your conscience. So I think as we go through life, as we become more and more refined, right? As we build a relationship with the Father, something I think is interesting. I have a friend who got married probably close to a couple years ago now, and he made a statement. He's like, it seems like my wife and I are starting to finally become the same person, in the sense that they've spent enough time around one another that they have become very close in the sense that they both start to think the same ways, they have the same goals, they're pursuing the same thing. He can speak on behalf of his wife and she can speak on behalf of him, right? And I think that this verse kind of hits on that. I hope it is also plain to your conscience, right? As we start to submit ourselves more and more to the Lord, as we start to become more and more Christ-like, our consciences, the ways that we start to feel about things ought to kind of align with what God has to say. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. 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 Right. Mm-hmm. 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 Very good. And I think our conscience is kind of like a house, right? You're either fixing it or you're not doing anything and it's slowly degrading, right? So as we pursue relationship, we're working, that conscience is slowly getting fixed up on. It's slowly getting fixed up on and aligned more and more to the will of God. However, if we're walking away, it's getting damaged. And it has to be, or else we can't live with ourselves, right? Doing what we're doing, walking away from the Lord. So I just thought that was, I really liked the phrasing of that. What we are is plain to God, and I hope it is also plain to your conscience. I hope you know exactly who you are. So I just love that verse. Anyway, moving on to verses 12 through 15. I'll go ahead and read these. It says, we are not trying to commend ourselves to you again, but are giving you an opportunity to take pride in us, so that you can answer those who take pride in what is seen rather than what is in the heart. If we are out of our mind, as some say, it is for God. If we are in our right mind, it is for you. For Christ's love compels us, because we are convinced that one died for all, and therefore all died. And he died for all, that those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for him who died for them and was raised again. So, first off, anybody have any thoughts on verse 12? I'll go ahead and reread that. It says, we are not trying to commend ourselves to you again, but are giving you an opportunity to take pride in us, so that you can answer those who take pride in what is seen rather than what is in the heart. Any thoughts on verse number 12 there? So the part that made me kind of step back a little bit was this, in the beginning of this. We are not trying to commend ourselves to you again, but are giving you an opportunity to take pride in us, right? And that kind of bothered me a little bit. It's like, we shouldn't be taking pride in other people. So what, does that bother anybody else? Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Right. Right. Because I was told to. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's kind of goes into that principle of always being prepared to give an answer, right? And so he's saying here, I hope that you can take pride in us. Why? So that you can answer those who take pride in what is seen rather than what is in the heart, right? There's a purpose behind that. Yep. Then here was the other verse that kind of stuck out to me. If we are out of our mind, as some say, it is for God. If we are in our right mind, it is for you. What's he saying there? Yes. Mm. Mm-hmm. 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 Right, right. And yet to us it makes perfect sense now that we've lived in it, right? Yep, yep. So is that what's meant by that second part? If we are in our right mind, it is for you. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Because that was a little bit. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Mm-hmm. 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 Right. Mm-hmm. Right. 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 Because what they're doing, um, in being out of their mind, it is for God, right? So they have a focus that is different, and the rest of the world looks at that and goes, "What is going on?" Right? However, we recognize that there's something very real going on. Um, any other thoughts on that? All right. So, um, in verses 14 through 15, it says, "For Christ's love compels us, because we are convinced that one died for all, and therefore all died." Right? So all who accepted him died to themselves because Christ died for them. Um, and he for all that those who live no longer should live for, that those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for him who died for them and was raised again. And that reminded me of Romans 12, right? Offering our bodies as a living sacrifice is your true and proper service. So that was a thought I had on there. Any other thoughts line up with that? Alrighty, good deal. So from this point on, we kind of move into looking a little bit into what we have already with perspective change, right? And then also identity. And I know I've hounded on this bottom part of this verse and other lessons because I love this. But starting in verses 16 through 17, says, "So from now on, we regard no one from a worldly point of view. Though we once regarded Christ in this way, we do so no longer." Right? We see Christ not as foolishness, as the world does, but we see him as something different. "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come, the old is gone, and the new is here." So, something that we were kind of talking about is just this whole perspective shift, right? And obviously he's saying that's required of us, right? How can it not happen when we pursue this? So I guess from some of you guys, what are some ways that you have learned to actually develop this new outlook? Yes? Okay. I would wish others did that to me, so I appreciate you, because I did not hear that. So, good deal. I guess if you guys any closing thoughts before we move out here. All right, let's have a prayer, guys. Father, I thank you for my church family here. I ask that you would bless them this coming week. I thank you for this opportunity we've had to come and look into your word a little bit, for my opportunity to learn, for theirs as well. Father, I ask that this time we would keep you as our focus. We would remember that our perspective is to look external from ourselves, that we would lift one another up and build each other up. And we thank you for your Son and what that means for us today. And